So a lot to get to as we get going on a Monday. Jesse, I'm not even sure quite where to begin, but you have beautiful notes. So I'm going to let you start.
So DHS gave Malusian a list of the bad hombres that they picked up in Minneapolis in the last 2 weeks. This is just nasty. We got a Laotian illegal who was convicted of sodomizing children. We got another Laotian illegal convicted of rape and strangulation. A Somali illegal convicted of homicide. Another Somali of manslaughter. A Mexican convicted of homicide. And I could read this list for the next hour. And so you send ICE in because Minnesota's not holding these guys. They're roaming around the city. So you have to go into these neighborhoods blind, cold, in frigid conditions, and you have to do dangerous targeted raids at homes, not knowing who's behind the door and how they're going to react. You see how some of them react? They drive their car into you over and over and over again. So you get this militant mom who's out of her mind, and she puts her vehicle, 2,000 pounds, and blocks a convoy of law enforcement, pinning the convoy down in a street. It's very dangerous. When you're dealing with guys, they're at large, convicted of homicide and raping children. And so she drives into them. We know the rest. But why are they doing this? Why is the Democratic Party sending women into the trenches to put their bodies in between foreign criminals and federal agents? Why would they do that? Why are they willing to sacrifice the lives of American women to protect foreign criminals? Is it because of the cheap labor? Is it because of the political power that the census gives? What's the reason? Is it because they're in on the welfare scam? Maybe. I bet when they get power, eventually they might. They just ran amnesty through. They created the conditions for this poor woman's death. They pour millions of people in here. They commit crimes, steal welfare, and then the Democrats circle the wagons around them. So you can't get them out of here. That's what's going on. They're exploiting this woman's death for political power, and the Trump administration is not going to back down.
Jessica, it does. Obviously, this story really ratcheted up over the weekend, and it didn't calm down. So the headquarters veto has changed into the interference with the federal law enforcement, and it's happening not just in Minnesota, but now it's growing in Minneapolis and across the state, and then in other cities as well. You're starting to see this thing. What about Jesse's point about the Democrats sort of condoning or encouraging this behavior that could be leading to bad consequences?
Well, I'm on just about every Democratic listserv, and I have gotten no emails trying to recruit me to go and drive my Honda Pilot into the middle of the road and get in the face of ICE agents. I am not denying the fact that Renee Good was affiliated with a group that was doing this, that there was a makeshift protest going on, and that her car for those 3 or 4 minutes was obstructing the convoy of ICE agents. The issue is that there is no line between her actions and the fact that she is dead that anyone should be able to justify. And if you want to have a conversation about letting ICE do their job, especially when they are targeting those bad hombres, I'm here for it. I have said from the beginning that I think that blue cities should work with ICE to make sure that the bad guys get out. And then guess what? Maybe they won't go around door to door or show up at car washes and pick up someone who has 3 veteran sons that have served this country and is a mainstay of the community. I don't think you're going to find much disagreement there. But playing this game of misdirection to, oh, well, look, she was obstructing traffic, or look how annoying her wife is, or look at this snide thing that she says, doesn't necessarily, and we need an investigation, which I would love it if Secretary Noem would talk about that, justify Officer Ross's actions.
No
and
one
the
said
fact that
any of that.
Yeah, but you want to change the subject to
nobody here. You said you. Nobody has said, oh, she said annoying things, and
leading by saying she obstructed traffic ignores the most important part of the story, which is that there is a woman who is dead, and Officer Ross
broke the law.
Actually,
I'll get to
and
it.
guess what? I look forward to it, and then I'll jump in and I will annoy everyone and we'll go back to normal. But Officer Ross's own filming of the incident shows exactly what happened, including the fact that he was already to the side of the car when he fired the first shot, and there was no justifiable reason, and there have been many law enforcement officers who've spoken out against this to at least fire those second 2 shots into the side of the car. And if you don't think that this guy had animus, if you don't think that this guy was angry and not just acting in self-defense, when he walks away and says, effing B-I-T-C-H.
Oh, now you're talking about his language.
Yes, it's because I can't stand to hear someone cursing. I'm saying that it makes clear that this was not just somebody that was like, oh my God, I could have been hurt. It's someone who was really pissed off and someone who was angry and took it out on this woman.
This is so irrelevant.
It is not.
Yes,
I understand.
I understand how desperate you are to make a point, but this makes no sense.
You are desperate to interrupt me so that I can't make my point.
No, because I'm running out of patience.
Noem, I'm sorry, guess what? We got another 52 minutes, so buckle up. Secretary Noem is sitting there with Jake Tapper, and she's dodging left and right, saying Donald Trump is just focused on making sure every law is being enforced. And Jake Tapper shows her footage of January 6th, and every police officer by this standard should have been able to open fire on all of those insurrectionists because they were in more danger than Officer Ross was at that moment. What? Let me get a battering ram and run towards you, Jesse.
Please. I could use the help.
I guess you proved your point with Ashley Babbitt, so.
Do you want to go now with your...
Well, okay, so the argument over the shooting is irrelevant if you deny the premise for them being there. This is part of the strategic ignorance where the other side doesn't understand things. Why is ICE here? Why is breaking the law wrong? Why do we need this kind of enforcement? What is wrong with an open border? Then you're forced to explain everything, which takes forever, even though you know that they know. Because the same rules that govern civil order also operates under their lives. So, you don't sneak into Disneyland, you pay. You don't cut in line at the movies, you wait in line. You don't interfere with the police. You know it's wrong. So until you don't admit that your private and public behavior align, you are living a lie. I want every liberal, because we have millions of liberals watching the show, to engage in a thought scenario, okay? You ask your sister this question. So what are your plans today, Deborah? And she goes, well, I plan on filming myself harassing and impeding armed law enforcement. Well, so how would you respond to your sister? You'd say, honey, do you think that's wise? What about the kids? Where are the kids? Oh, I drop them off at daycare. So what time are you doing this? At 11. Aren't you working? Oh, no, not at the moment. So you drop your kids off at daycare, you're not working, and you're going to stop law enforcement. Don't you think this is time you should spend with your family, or maybe do a job search or take some classes? Don't you think this is unhealthy behavior? Now, if you deny to a family member or to a best friend that this is how you would react, you are lying to yourself to protect your public virtue on this matter. This is how you get, in my opinion, the fake empathy liberal to return to reality. If your sister is telling you that instead of caring for her children or her mental health, that she prefers to stalk law enforcement, would you say, you go, girl? Of course not. You would say, you need an intervention. I need to stop you because I care about you. And that is the problem, Jessica. Nobody cares about good. You don't care about her. The left never cared about. The activist group that trained her didn't care about it, who should be sued for wrongful death, who put her in this situation. She had no friends. She had no relatives to offer her advice when she was doing this stuff, when she was putting her life in jeopardy. Think about this pathetic movement and all the videos you've seen of these women. Where are their friends? Where are their parents? Where are the kids that would say, Mommy, what are you doing? Why aren't you home? The left always says that politics is personal, but then they separate their political behavior from their personal reality. If you would tell your sister that this behavior is nuts, then you would not publicly express an entirely different opinion on this matter. No one wants their sister or their daughter or friend engaging in this any more than you would want your child to engage in the Tide Pod Challenge or Subway Surf. So you need to ask this question before every action you think you're going to endorse. If your private persona and your public behavior is different, you are a lying hypocrite and you're hurting others and you're not helpful to these lonely, sad people that we're leading on in this world.
You're here.
Yes.
Let me ask, Emily, you could comment on any of that, but also within the time you have, would you mind explaining what Minnesota is trying to do, and will it be successful in trying to get ICE to not send more agents to Minnesota?
Minnesota is trying to get an injunction right now to stop ICE from operating. They want this operation to cease right now, and then in the grand scheme to have it ruled invalid and unconstitutional writ large, so they're out permanently. They say they are being unjustly and unconstitutionally targeted because of what they have said, so they're arguing First Amendment. It will not fly. Look, I want to focus on what you two talked about, if I may, and weigh in. There's a line that gets crossed as circumstances develop. And that's why and how an assault, which is, an impending fear of bodily harm, can become a battery, can become a homicide. That's why the totality of circumstances are at play here per the Supreme Court. So as we look at and assess the entire situation there, it matters what led up, but it also matters what lines were crossed and when. And that's why it matters when a simple protester becomes a potential felon and potentially on the hook for violating the law by impeding a lawful federal action. It's when someone refuses to comply, when per the Fourth Amendment seizure, when an officer says, get out of the car and stay there, they're not actually lawfully able to leave, and more. And so the standard that governs this is the federal use of force standard and the criminal code. It is not politics. It is not what Minnesota leadership says or what people voice. And those on the left that are saying, well, this person, this subject died for this. No, Jocelyn Nungaray already died for this. No, the people already died for this that are at the hands of these horrific criminals that these good, brave men and women of law enforcement are trying to get off the street. And so they talk about her being trained. Well, if she was trained, why didn't she know that she stopped being a civil protester many steps before she got to the use of her vehicle as an imminent use of force, deadly weapon? And in terms of the multiple shots, Supreme Court has upheld multiple times that multiple shots are warranted, and that once deadly force is justified, then you can use as many shots as possible to eliminate the threat, or if the officer determines such. And so your point when you said no one cares about her, you're right, because the first question press asked, and we all saw it on national television, was what was the name of the officer? And it was before they asked what was the name of the woman that was shot. All anyone ever cared about was vilifying law enforcement for doing their job and protecting those kids and those people like Jocelyn Nungaray who didn't get protection because of bad decisions. They don't actually care about the name of the woman behind the wheel.
Radicals have cannon fodder too.
You can apply an equal standard, by the way, to the behavior of Officer Ross and Renee Good. You could say, let's make this about the issues, which is ICE enforcement, and say it is possible
Would you tell
that
your
an
sister
investigation.
to go block a car?
Of course not.
Then use that behavior here.
But would you tell Officer Ross to fire from the side of the vehicle and then again into the side? Absolutely not.
Okay, I have the best one more thing, so we have got to go. Up next, President Trump is mulling military action in Iran as the uprising rages for its third week.
Yes.